2024. I'd also like to welcome board members Dixon and Armstrong who have joined us today, and I'll ask Councillor Mackenzie to open with karakia.
Thank you, Chair. Tuia ki ronga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki roto, tuia ki waho, tuia tato te tangata, kei te kaupapa o te huinei, ki te kaupapa o te ranginei, moriora ki a tato katoa. Bind above, bind below, bind within, bind beyond, bind us the people, to the purpose of our meeting, to the purpose of this day, breathe life into all of us.
Kia ora. Thank you for that. So just a little bit of housekeeping. So just remember this meeting's being recorded and will be on Council's YouTube. We've got Councillor Hill on Zoom. So if you use your microphones, if you're speaking, and if you want to ask a question or just signal my Deputy Chair, she'll record who wants to, because I might miss it. Everybody's in the room has been here before, so we all know where the fire exits are. I've got some apologies this morning, two for lateness. Councillor Alison Maru were at some training and they expect to be here before 2:15. Their training is due to finish now. And apologies from Mayor King, who's got to go to Wellington this morning, Deputy Mayor Bryant and Councillor Greening. Would someone like to move that those apologies be received? Councillor Kittamont moved, seconded Councillor Butler. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Now, public forum, we've only got one speaker this morning, Mr. Schaffner, who's speaking on behalf of the Tasman Democracy Incorporated. So, Mr. Schaffner, would you like to come up? You've been here before as well. So you've got 10 minutes, and I understand you're speaking on the Environmental Policy Activity Report. Yes, as a member of a thing, you get 10 minutes, and I've got a timer here, so I'll start you off. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Today, I would like to talk about a few points on your agenda for this meeting. The first is the so-called Waimea Inlet Action Plan Annual Progress Report, a long name. Point 512, it's intended to change the wording from, quote, develop a long-term plan for sustainable, environmental, acceptable, and culturally sensitive operation of the NRSBU. And it's intended to change it to develop a long-term plan for the NRSBU which considers its operation with regards to sustainability, environmental, and culturally impacts. And it says further, the proposed revision retains the overall intent of the original wording. I would like to disagree on this, because the original wording explains how the operation needs to be done, namely sustainable, environmentally acceptable, and culturally sensitive. But the proposed wording only mentioned these as factors to be considered. So the operation itself does not need to be anymore in a sustainable, environmentally acceptable, and culturally sensitive way. In my view, that's not a minor change. But please don't get me wrong, if there are good reasons to change the wording as proposed, then this would be okay. But in the report, I cannot see good reasons for such a change. However, in the report, there are mentioned two disadvantages to when not changing the wording. The first one is other group members have already adopted the revised wording. And to be honest, this is concerning to me, because one could think that we don't have a culture of open debate and considering different viewpoints. Because if someone else made a decision, then we just need to follow them, or what? And it's actually called a disadvantage that this committee might have a different view. Personally, I'm heavily grounded in democracy, and that's why our group named Tasman Democracy. And from that viewpoint, I find it concerning when disagreement is labeled as a disadvantage in a democratic decision-making process. What's also concerning is the second point that was mentioned in the report, quote, the original wording is not practicable. I mean, same rights for everyone. Can members of the public do the same when something is not practicable? For instance, an increase of council rates is not practicable for me, but I still have to live with that. Or when I want to provide shelter for homeless people for free, I would need to pay $25,000 for resource consent and development contribution, which is, to me, not practicable. Or I have to pay $42,000 to my lawyers in legal proceedings. That's not practicable for me, especially when I cannot see any wrongdoing on my side. So the point that I want to make is that something is practical or not is usually not a good reason. And I think the public deserves a better explanation. And yes, I know I can look at point 7, that's written, there's no legal requirement to prepare, review, or adopt this document. Yeah, that's fine. But then the question is, why do we do this in the first place? How about we focus our resources on things that needs to be done, that are required from council, but council is not doing at the moment. I can give you a quick example of retention of search warrant documents. It's a hard requirement under Search and Surveillance Act, but council confirmed to me that they don't have this document, even that the council must retain it under the Search and Surveillance Act. So it's frustrating to see how council resources are spent or used or even not used. But let's move on to the end of your agenda, the Strategic Policy Environmental Policy Activity Report. In there I can read on the long-term plan, supporting information was considered by councillors at a workshop. Then next point, community leasing and licensing policy. We held a workshop with councillors. Tasman climate response strategy. Draft a strategy action plan was workshop with councillors. Public places bylaw. The issues were discussed at the workshop. Dog control bylaw. Issues were discussed at the workshop. Cat bylaw. Issues were discussed at the workshop. Introductory bylaw. Issues were discussed at the workshop. I mean, stupid question. How do you think there can be effective public participation if members of the public have no access to all these workshops where you discuss a lot of things? And yeah, I know there's a consultation process at the end usually, but maybe the public wants to see what's happening along the way from start to finish to get a really clear picture of what's going on in your institution. And if I'm correct, then the next workshop on all these bylaws is at the 21st of May. And council's own documentation says about workshops, workshops can be either open to the public or public excluded. So how about we do this and we open the workshop to the public? And I hereby officially request that this workshop, 21st of May, is open to the public so that we can listen what's going on. And I guess we are all aware of the report from the Chief Ombudsman last year in October, when he investigated especially local councils meetings and workshops. Just a few quotes from this Ombudsman report. Trust is at the core of the relationship between the people and their locally elected representatives. One way local government can earn trust is through transparent decision-making that is open to the public involvement and scrutiny. Transparency supports accountability, encourages high performance. The principles of openness and good administrative practices apply to workshops as much as any other aspect of council's business. Conducting a great deal of council business behind closed doors, whether through workshops or public excluded meetings, can have a damaging effect on how open the community perceives a council to be. And he continues, it is crucial that councils conduct their businesses in open and transparent manner so the public can see democracy, the same word again, democracy in action and participate in democratic processes. Local authorities in New Zealand should be open for public. And the Ombudsman concludes with the following, I expect all councils to make their policies and practices meet my expectation of good workshop practice. Crucially, this includes opening workshops to the public by default, closing them only where good reason exists. So let's have this workshop open on the 21st of May, open to the public by default, as the Ombudsman said. And of course, if there are good reasons, which might be the case, if there are good reasons to have this workshop behind closed doors, then how about you tell the public what these good reasons, not just a reason, good reasons, what the good reasons are, so that the public can challenge them and, if necessary, involve the Ombudsman, just for the sake of transparency and accountability, because I personally would like to live in a democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schaffner. And you were under 7 minutes. That's very good. Thank you. Did anyone have a question of clarification only? Right, so we'll move on to our agenda. So any declarations of interest this morning? No late items. Confirmation of minutes from the strategy and policy meeting on the Thursday, the 16th of November, 2023. Be confirmed as a true and correct record. Do I have a mover? Councillor Butler, seconder. Councillor Kittermont will put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Right, reports. So we've got about four or five reports. Mine is the first report. Let's see if I can bring it up on the system. It works. So I'll take that as read. I've got to say that's the second time I've been to the RSA Purple Poppy Day. It's quite a moving ceremony when you think that there was over 4,000 animals went from New Zealand in the First World War. They didn't come home. So it's the RSA has done this for the last 2 years, and they've been doing it in Australia for a while. And I think it's a very appropriate thing, and it's always a pleasure to represent the council at them. So, is any questions on my report? None. Would someone like to move that it be accepted other than me? Councillor Mackenzie, seconded Councillor Dowler. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carry. Right. Let's see if I can get back to the next report. Right. The next up that we've got is a review of the Tasman joint waste thing. So, David, and I think we've got a couple of members that are on this with you. So, over to you, David.
Good morning, councillors.
Page 6 of the report. That's right. Of our agenda.
This is a report just to give you an update of the beginning of work by the Joint Waste Working Party, a joint working group of Nelson and Tasman District Councillors with opportunity for iwi representation also. And I'll happy to take the report as read and take any questions.
Councillor Maru.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, David. So can I just go to page 10, and I guess for the benefit of the table. So in terms of the option 1 and requires resourcing and extra staff resourcing, is that currently included in our long-term plan budgets for this work in terms of option 1?
I believe it is, but I would need to check and come back to you on that one.
And Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move the recommendations as they stand.
Okay, so we've got a mover. Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, look, I'm happy to second it. We did canvass the approach at the joint working party meeting. I think it's sensible. We do need to be mindful, I guess, of changing government policy in this area. But I think it's important that we have a document that's fit for purpose and actually ultimately will drive actions in our LTP. So the team are doing good work. Thank you.
That's right. There's some minimum requirements for our waste management minimisation plan, and we have to have regard to the New Zealand waste strategy. And so when that waste strategy changes, we need to at least have regard to that. There are some minimum requirements under the plan, and there's opportunity for the councillors and for the councils to decide whether or not the scope of the plan goes beyond the minimum requirements or perhaps extends into a more aspirational role as well.
And I also understand that a number of councils have got some exemptions from the legislation because they aren't doing the amount of recycling that we're doing. I understand Waitaki's one of them. So
in parallel with that, the government can set performance measures for councils through the Act, and recently the government passed regulations requiring standardised collection of recycling around the country. So those are performance measures, separate again to the waste strategy. So you're correct. There's both our the government waste policy, which we have to have regard to, And also the government has powers to pass regulations, gazette notices or regulations or performance measures on the council.
Right. Councillor Dowell has got a question, and then after that we'll put the motion.
Just more of a comment, really. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity of going up to Tauranga for a meeting that I had to go to, and met a colleague in Auckland and went down in his vehicle. You see that kid on the TV that they're doing that energy thing, and they drive an electric car, and she's counting the dead possums on the road. Well, I counted the bags of fly tipping on the state highway from about halfway from between Auckland and Tauranga, and I managed to count 47 bags on the side of the road. Now, that was on the highway, not down the side. So I read in here that the increasing the rate and application of the waste disposal levy. So I think we might have to increase our budget for cleaning up the fly tipping that's going to go with it. I'm sorry, but it's reality.
Yeah, so just I guess a passing reference to that is in our proposed long-term plan and the waste activity, we're proposing that illegal dumping numbers be monitored as a performance measure of the council. So we're taking that on board and making sure that we monitor and report on that as well.
I tend to agree. So no other questions. The motion has been moved. Councillor Marrow, seconded Councillor McKenzie. I intend to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Next up, we've got the Waimea Inlet Action Plan Annual Progress Report. And Anna, that's you. So over to you. Page 19 of your agenda.
Kia ora koutou. Apologies from Kat, she's tied up with the auditors, but she was also a main author of this report. So it usually is an information only report where we bring along the annual progress in implementing the Waimea Inlet Action Plan. You may recall that in August last year, we adopted the new strategy and action plan, which were combined into a single document, and have been busy implementing it across all the different organisations. And in November, the group prepared the annual report, which is attached as an appendix with the highlights listed in this report. But today we, at our last hui in November last year, we just, whichever hui it was, we discussed the particular action around the NRSBU, and Nelson City Council had further discussions with the NRSBU staff on that one, who had requested wording changes, and that was taken back to the Waimea Inlet Coordination Group for discussion, and the proposed new wording shown on Resolution 2 there. And actually today, Nelson City Council is finally considering the report to adopt the plan from last year, and I've heard that they might be asking for an extension to the deadline and that revised wording beyond 2024. So that would be an extra new thing. If you are comfortable just going with whatever date Nelson agreed to, we could do that, or we could leave it at 2024. But I'm sorry, it's an extra new thing that's just popped up this morning. So I might just take questions on that.
I don't think we should be beholden to Nelson City, to be honest. I think we should act as a council on our own. That's a view I take. We're bigger than them. And the NRSBU and the Waimea Inlet is majority in our patch, not theirs. So maybe I'm biased, but that's my view. They need to get their ducks in a row. If they can't, we can fix it later.
I guess the 30th of June is coming up pretty soon. So
my understanding is, well, I chair the NRSBU in another forum. I've spoken with the staff out there in relation to this. They meet with iwi regularly, and they are doing some innovative things in terms of using treated wastewater for irrigation, which is happening as we speak. I was looking at some concrete being poured on Monday out there. So there are some real changes doing. iwi don't like treated wastewater going to the estuary. We know that. It was part of the consent hearing. But the cost of moving that plant is a considerable sum of money that makes the Waimea Dam look quite small. It's over $350 million. So I'm happy with the wording that's there, but we'll take questions as we go. Councillor McKenzie.
I guess the question, and you might have good insights into this, Chair, given your other role. I mean, as it's currently worded, it implies that a plan is going to be sustainable, is going to be environmentally acceptable, and is going to be culturally sensitive. So what we're doing is we're changing the wording so that we consider all of those aspects. But it might be, the end result might be that the plan doesn't demonstrate that it's sustainable, doesn't demonstrate that it's environmentally acceptable, and doesn't demonstrate that it's culturally sensitive, because maybe in actual fact we can't achieve those things. So it does mean two different things. So is there any insights that you can give us from your role as the chair?
Well, in terms of environmental, I listened to the reports from the Cawthron Institute at the hearing some 3 years ago when we got a 20-year consent. So there was no adverse effect. And if you look at the plan that's going forward with what's in train, we would hope that over the summer months in the future, there will be no discharge because of, we've got it's public knowledge, there is a memorandum of understanding with MPI to take up to 1,000 cubes of wastewater a day, treated wastewater for wood manufacturing. We've also got 58 hectares at Best Island that the NRSBU purchased, that they will irrigate that and grow a cash crop, probably baleage, which is currently leased out. And we're now providing irrigation water to Green Acres Golf Club. And we will be able to, in the future, also be able to provide it to Saxton Field. So that using treated wastewater for those sorts of activities is much better than it's actually going to see. So, and it means you're not using precious drinking water for other things. So that's what's in the plan. And in the 10-year plan for NRSBU that has been adopted by this council is a purchase of some land to move inland in time. If I remember correctly, Councillor Dowler, you were there at that. So that's the start of, you know, they would like to move inland at some stage, but I think it's 40 years away. So those are some of the insights that I'm aware of.
So just maybe two questions, I guess. You know, are we giving up some aspiration in terms of changing the wording, is my first question, and then maybe I should be looking at Anna, not to. So that's my first question, and then my second question is building on something that Anna said. I mean, if 30th of June is coming up, I mean, if in actual fact we're not going to achieve the plan by then, why would we be approving that date now? We're just setting ourselves up to fail. So, so I'll just maybe.
I can actually answer because I got an email from the operations manager this morning, and he was happy with that.
Okay.
So that's Mr. Nixon, who's the operations manager, not the general manager, but Mr. Nixon, because I saw him on Monday, and he sent me an email. I read it this morning. He was happy with the wording of this. Councillor Walker. Oh no, Councillor, it was I'll go Prindy first, and then Councillor Murray. Sorry.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I guess I'm going to go over a bit of where Councillor McKenzie came from, that the word change is significant. The timing is one concern. My biggest concern is the risk factor that we sit under, and how many times do we breach with our consent there. I mean, we know that in Motueka we've had major issues going on. And I do look at, if we change this, what are we actually telling our community? It's not just by the June 2024, but the wording is quite different. Where do we sit as a risk factor, reputational risk, but also the risk to our environment?
I'll attempt to answer, but I guess just firstly to say we're bringing this on behalf of discussion of the wider Waimea Inlet Coordination Group, and it was Nelson City Council and NRSBU who initiated this discussion, and Councillor Malin probably has more insight into the discussions between NRSBU on that. But another thing to remember is this is a non-statutory plan which is developed with the goodwill of the community, and these targets within them are all very aspirational. A reason that we include aspirational targets is to hopefully be able to attract outside funding for things, and we've been successful for that in the past. But we've attracted over 3.1 million in external funding to implement the plan overall, which is a reason things are aspirational. So I guess there's pluses and minuses. I don't know if that's answered your question, but
You do get overflows, but they don't come from sewage, they come from stormwater. So infiltration, so it's actually an engineering problem. So if you've got a berry fields where we have a pressurized system, we don't get overflows. If you have an ordinary system, you get inundation. And the flows that go to Bells Island in heavy weather events can be up to 7 times what we get in the dry during the dry. And both councils have, and this is a council problem, not an NRSBU problem, both councils have plans to reduce infiltration in their stormwater. It takes time and you still won't get rid of it all. The more we move to pressurized systems like in berry fields, the less overflows we will get. But there is a consent for overflows from Nelson City. There isn't for us, and we have had overflows at Beach Road, but we don't get many. And we've also had them at Mapua. So Nelson City have a consent for it, we don't. So when we do it, we get in trouble, but it comes from our stormwater. I'll move on. So I hope I've answered that. Right. And I've got Maru Allison Hill. Councillor Maru.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's a broken record because it's a problem when you put your hand up and have to wait for a while, isn't it? And I'm probably have more of an issue with the word change, the fact that it's aspirational, because we're saying we don't aspire to what we set out to do in the start. But my question, and sorry, either Mr. Ridd or Anna, my question is, what do our staff recommend? So I get where this has come from, but what does the recommend from staff? So I feel uncomfortable with the change of wording in terms of not being aspirational to achieve that.
Well, personally, I am happy with the change in terms of it being more realistic and practicable to implement. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, thank you for that. Councillor Ellis, and then Hill, and then Mr. Kittlemore, Councillor Kittlemore.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Anna, for your report. I'm just curious if you recommend and are happy with the staff, are happy with the change. What change do you recommend for that date?
I didn't personally think we should change the date. I was just letting you know that Nelson might quite likely be pushing for a change of date, and just so that you're aware of that. But as Councillor Malin said at the start, there already is an activity management plan for NRSBU, which will be adopted by the 30th of June. So, yeah, I'm happy for it to stay.
Okay, so I'm happy to move that. And I'd also like to draw attention to the rest of your report and the amazing amount of work that we run off the back of some amazing community organisations, where they drive so much of this work. and just get amazing results. So I did also want to draw attention to that and the work of staff that help coordinate that too.
Thank you for that. I'd have to support that. The wetland restoration work just looks amazing down off the cycleway on the way to Rabbit Island. It's Councillor Hill is next. Good morning,
Kia
Councillor.
ora. Thank you, Chair. Sort of instinctively, it doesn't seem quite right, doesn't it, the word change? But I was thinking from a cultural perspective about that. But I note in the iwi engagement section of the report, 8.1, 8.2, that the iwi members present, they were part of the discussion around rewording the action and advised that they preferred the suggested revision. I'm not sure if Renee's in the room, or Anna, whether you can comment that you know that we're confident as a council that I see that the account of the engagement there and Peter Lawless's work with iwi. Yeah, I guess I'm wanting to know that we're confident that that reflects generally a wideish iwi perspective.
Yep, kia ora. This group has had great engagement with iwi over the years. They've always had an open invitation to be members of this coordination group, and 7 of the 8 iwi have engaged at various times. And as you say, 2 or 3 of them were there at that discussion. They always go out of their way to say that they're not speaking on behalf of all iwi, but the ones who were there were happy with that change to the wording. So we can never say, yes, all iwi do agree with that wording change, but those ones there were part of that discussion. So,
no, are we confident that we've done enough in that? If you think about the cultural component of the change, are we confident that we've done enough? I'm assuming Renee's not in the room, is that right?
No, Renee's not here.
Okay.
Yeah, well, Davine was one of the people. She's a co-chair, so she was present. And she often leads. Yeah, I can't really comment, but I would. Yeah, I think it was good that they were there and part of the discussion.
Yeah, thank you. And just wondering, what's the potential worst case place we could end up with the wording change, the implementation of it, or in actuality, what could happen that we'd be later feeling a bit remiss about?
Yeah, so as I said before, it's a non-statutory plan. It's a voluntary thing that all the members have decided to create together. So it's not like the Tasman Resource Management Plan or a reserve management plan, or it has no sort of legal. That's why it's aspirational as well, I guess, is because it's something where people are wanting to do as a collective. So there's less risk, I think, to other statutory plans that are similar to these.
Thank you. I'll be supporting the resolution. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Kilmore.
Thank you. Through the chair, further to what Councillor Ellis has talked about as well, and yourself. Councillor Ellis and myself represent the TDC on this action group. I've never met a group so positive and so forward thinking about looking after an asset with Waimea Inlet. And at the last meeting, the iwi representatives were there. Correct me if I'm wrong, there was 6 there, 5 or 6. There was a large number anyway. We're all very positive of the direction the group was taking, and also any changes like that. So iwi are definitely on board, but I'd like to not guarantee that to the extent that they all are, but they're definitely attending these meetings. They're definitely having a full input into it, and that I'll leave my comment to that, and I'll support that. Like Councillor Hill, I'll support the vote for it to be accepted.
I'm looking for a seconder. I've got a mover.
Oh, I'll second.
Oh, okay. Councillor Kittermott seconding. I've got one more speaker, Councillor McKenzie.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's good. I just want to acknowledge what Councillor Ellis and Councillor Kinmoff have said. We had a big discussion about this wording, but actually let's not forget the fantastic work that's being done and achieved through this plan and recognise that. And I guess when I think about this wording being in this non-statutory document, at the end of the day, the direction to the Nelson Regional Sewage Business Unit, their direction of travel does not necessarily come from the Waimea Inlet Action Plan. It actually comes from a different process, which is directed through the council. So for that reason, then I'm happy to support this motion.
All right, so I'm not seeing any other questions. So let's put the motion. The motion is on the board. So all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? And that's carried. Right. Could have written those pages down before I started. My fault. Barbara and Anna, good morning.
Karakoto, how are you? So this is the climate change update. This is an information only, no decision needs to be taken here. I would like just to bring to your attention an omission that I did. I forgot on paragraph 4.1, regional update on the Nelson Tasman Joint Waste Review Working Party. I forgot to add Councillor Dakey name, and I apologize for that. It is quite of a rich report with a lot of information, so my apologies, Councillor. So I'm happy for you to take the report as read, and if you have any questions, please give it to us. Thanks.
Right, we'll start with Councillor McKenzie and then Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Barbara, for your report. First one, I've got two questions. First one, straightforward, just the work that we've been doing on the construction waste diversion. We mentioned in the report that the trial has concluded. Staff are now reviewing the cost effectiveness of this program and the next steps. Will we get any update when the staff have completed a report on this? I mean, it's an area that I'm really interested in. So how will we be informed about the learnings from the trial and the next steps?
Thank you. We can include further information in our next quarterly report if you like, unless it comes through earlier and they report to operations usually for that would be the only other option. Whichever comes first, we can definitely report back on that though. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. I just had a question. This is moving on to page 52 and 53, where it talks about the new forestry rules. Now, it was raised recently at a community meeting that I was at around rules that we may set as a council for where you can have effectively plantation forests. So I think where the person was coming from was, say, with regard to Christchurch with the Port Hills fire, where you've got plantation forests that end up, obviously burning and houses need to be evacuated and all the rest of it. So is there anything in the new NES that would actually enable a council to say, look, actually, in that area there, we don't think that we want to have plantation forestry?
Diana, you've come up to answer this one.
Morena Koto through the chair.
So you're referring to the NES plantation forestry is now the NES commercial forestry. Obviously, that sets that national baseline in terms of rules. So through the Land and Freshwater Plan, we are considering forestry as an activity in terms of its impact on freshwater as a receiving environment. There is particular provisions within the NES that allows us to have more stringency in relation to separation point granite. So we are currently exploring that. I know through the NES, there's also provisions in terms of wildfire management. I think you're supposed to have a wildfire management plan. So we are considering it and seeing what our scope is.
Yep, keep going.
And so do you think that those I mean, I get it in terms of freshwater and separation point granites, but what about built infrastructure and people? So how would those considerations come into it?
Through the chair, so that will be considered as part of the natural hazards plan change that's starting to be scoped.
Okay, because I mean, I think the communities, given, climate change and fires, I think communities are thinking about these sorts of things. So, yeah, just a point.
I can think of one community in particular at Lake Rotowedi that talks about defence around their houses. And having been to meetings there with the Deputy Mayor, and I'm sure you've probably attended some, that is a real issue because they're on the edge of a national park. It's natives, but they have them surrounding their houses with very little defence, should I say. And having, where I come from in Canada, wildfires jump rivers that are half a mile wide. So defence of dwellings becomes an issue, but I think it becomes personal ownership responsibility as well. Diana?
Through the chair, so in terms of wildfire, that's very much a consideration as part of this natural hazards plan change that we'll be scoping. And yeah, as Councillor Mayling said, there's particular areas within Tasman district where wildfire, there is heightened risk because you look at trees next to buildings, properties, and the slope aspect and things like that we need to consider. But council has a function in terms of, what we can do through the RMA. And so that's what we're looking into as part of this plan change versus say that civil defence and working with FENS around education and how individual households can be prepared.
Next question is from Councillor Butler.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the really comprehensive information about national and international climate change activities, because it's really helpful to have it all gathered in one space and to learn about it, because otherwise it's very scattered in the media and hard to find out about it. I've just got a couple of questions. Firstly, as regards the climate action plan and the strategy being embedded in the long-term plan, which you say it's embedded and has a budget, are you satisfied that it is visible enough in the actual documentation of the long-term plan? Because embed can mean that it's actually below the surface, but are you confident that it is actually visible enough and referenced enough?
Through the chair. So there will be a separate consultation page on the draft climate response strategy and action plan as part of the LTP consultation. So there'll be an LTP Shape Tasman page, which will link through to the climate page. So it will have its own visibility that way. It's also one of the key choices in the consultation document, and it's then scattered throughout the whole LTP as well, and things like the climate change assumptions. It's a key part of every activity management plan. And I think the new difference this year is that in the climate action plan itself, we now include the summary budget figures in there. So that will be useful for the public to see. We can see what council is proposing to spend against each action over the 10 years, which is quite transparent, I think.
It's yeah, so my other question is just in terms of the strategy, how are we doing with the strategy? I know we've got the plan, action plan, but the actual strategy, is that sort of finished, formulated, or because we haven't really seen much about that?
The climate change response strategy is within the documents that you received, that has got the action plan as well in it. And so it is there, it is finalized, it is in draft, finalized for public consultation. And if actually, maybe the question would be, if that's not clear enough, maybe we should just redesign it in a way where the presentation of the strategy and the plan together, it's more clear and more effective, I guess. And yeah, that would be the question. But the documents that you received on the climate response plan and the action and the Tasman action plan are all in one document, the one that you received several months ago and you have approved as well, if that answers my question.
Yeah, through the chair. You'll also be getting it again on the 25th of March as part of the L2P documentation to adopt all the information you're adopting for consultation on the L2P. Thus, the strategy and action plan, which is one combined document, will be included in that package on the 25th of March. Yeah.
Of course. Carry on.
So one more question is just in relation to the new government and quite a change in approach. And others might have heard Minister Jones on the radio this morning saying that they're going to allow a lot more mining than they have done, than the previous government did. So do you see that our strategy and action plan will have to change or adapt in any way because of, I mean, this is a sort of talking about the future, but I just wondered if you'd had any thoughts about whether or not we're going to have to respond to changes coming from government as regards climate change.
Mr. Ridd's going to give you a comment on that.
I'm going to give you a general comment that we're reacting all the time. I honestly, it's a little bit of look and see on a whole range of things at the moment, this being part of it. We're still continuing, because you're adopting a strategy, we're still continuing down the route we are. I know our auditors are currently really strong on our response to climate change. So we're working within the direction we've been given. Unless it changes, that's where we'll still be heading. So we're not trying to second guess stuff at the moment because it's really hard to.
Thank you.
I've got a simple question. Seeing as no one else has put their hand up, mine is in relation to transport. So if you look at our emissions, transport's our biggest emitter, and we as a council have invested, one, in electric vehicles, but two, in buses. And I ride the bus, not as often as I should, possibly, but I use an e-bike instead because it's healthier. Will we get some figures in time to see how, because we need to measure this as we go forward. And I know that we've got a problem with the roads where vehicles sitting idly, we're not as efficient, but it's actually as quick to go on the bus, and you can sit and work on the way into town now. And it costs me $1 to get on the bus to get to Nelson. The cost to the council for me to drive in there is $17 each way. So I know what I do. I get on the bus. So will we get those figures in the time? Has there been a change? Because I know the patronage has gone up, but will we get those figures?
Through the chair. So yes, we have been working on 2 different types of reports. So every year we present our council footprint, and that's currently with the auditor at the moment for verification. And once that's verified, we'll bring that to strategy and policy. We also have been working with Nelson City on doing regional carbon footprints, and we've worked on the 2018, 19 and 1920 years. That has been verified now. We're just about, we could bring that to either the April or May meeting. So and that's 2 years combined worth of information. So that's the first time that the information's been separated out by region, because Stats New Zealand just combines us as one. So it would be quite an interesting report for.
And the comparison to what was happening now would be really interesting going forward. So we won't get that for a while, but there certainly is a change happening.
If I may add as well, within the report, there is a mention of the fact that we've been working on securing a tool, a software that allow us to present all of our greenhouse gas emissions, whether they're corporate and or community emission, within a dashboard. And we've been doing that as a pool of different council in order to have economy of scale. And we have selected from international different tools that there are one that is being used by the City of Sydney. At the moment, it's the preferred type of tool. And we have also, we're in discussions with Te Huro Kahika, the regional CE organization that embraces our regional council, for them to consider taking over the procurement of such a tool. So we're working on this so that we have as well visualization, not only for our council, but as well for our community, so that we can really have a good picture of what decarbonization is going to be and is going to look like in time.
Thank you for that. Now, any other questions? I'm seeing none. So can we have a mover and a seconder that we receive the report? Councillor Butler's moved it. Councillor Murray has seconded. We'll put that. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. The update report for strategy and policy, and Alan, you're standing in for Dwayne, and Diana, you're standing in for Barry. And look at that. Thank you, Alexis. I've got a new notebook because I'm running out of pages.
Right.
For notes. So who's starting? Alan?
I'll start. Yeah, good morning, councillors. Yeah, so it's a bit of a tag team. So I'll talk about the community policy teams program. David will talk about the infrastructure planning team, and then Diana will come on and talk about the environmental policy stuff. So three bits. So in terms of the community policy team, the LTP is very much dominating our lives. So trying to get to the 25th of March for you to adopt the consultation document and a whole raft of supporting information and concurrent consultations, which we've obviously been talking to you about through the whole of last year. So we are, I think, coming to the end of the 4th week of 5 on audit. So we're spending a lot of time back and forth with the auditors at the moment. The kind of final stage of that is what they call the hot reviews. This is where OAG get involved rather than just Audit New Zealand. And if you like, it's an opportunity for Audit New Zealand to present what they've done in their audit and to raise any issues that they want the OAG to provide direction on. So that happens next week. So yeah, trying to resolve as many issues as we can before that happens. So yeah, very busy with that. And then the only other item that I kind of wanted to draw attention to was one that Councillor Kinnan raised with me. So we've got this item on the emergency fund policy, which is currently sitting on hold. It's on hold because through the LDP, at this point, you've indicated that there isn't an intention to collect rates to build up the emergency funds. And so sort of spending time on fine-tuning the policy seems kind of somewhat wasted if there's actually not going to be any money in those funds. What I suggest we do is we leave it there until maybe that decision report happens on the 25th of March, and at that point we kill it off and take it off the program, because say if there's no money in the funds, then tweaking with the policy seems somewhat futile. So and with that, I'll happy to take questions.
Right, so this report starts on page 57. So questions around the table, give you a bit of time, because there's a few things slightly delayed, but yeah, Mr. Ridd's going to make a comment. People are thinking if they've got a question.
There's a couple of bylaws we need to move quite urgently on at the moment. There's a moorings bylaw, a navigational bylaw. There's one more that's outstanding, I think, but it's a bit tricky with timing with the LTP and the like, but we're going to have to move at pace on a couple of these because they're beginning to expire. So we need to make sure we're legislatively compliant. So they'll be coming up pretty soon, I think.
Sorry, that's just reminded me. We've also got another kind of urgent bit of work that's come up, which we're working with the building control people on, and this is around a dangerous dams policy, which there's a deadline to get done. So yeah, we're working dangerous dams. So yeah, so it's new regulation that central government that require us to have the policy. So we've got to get that through. So we've managed to get Amy back from her.
We want to assure you that it's not about we've got dangerous dams. It's the title. It's the legislative. And it's, so you can chill a bit.
Yeah, and it's not related to the Waimea community dam either.
We have many small dams on farms around the district. Many small dams. Some of them are for stock water, some of them are for irrigation. I can think of one on a councillor's land that was a little wee thing with a bit of a pond behind it. A very small pond, I might add. Councillor, when I was up there shooting pukekes, getting rid of a pest. It is empty, yes, I'm sure it's empty. So, Councillor Walker and then Councillor Butler.
Thank you, through Chair. Just a quick question around the urban development entity, that investigation study. Do we have an allocated staff member on that? And I know that's going to joint council, but have we had somebody working along that journey? I mean, I'm aware that a few of us got to sit around a table a couple of times, but I haven't heard any more. I'd like to have an update prior to next week's joint council meeting. Thanks.
Alan?
Okay, so this was a piece of work that we were funding through the Better Off funding. So Briley's been kind of looking after it, but we've had external consultants doing the work for us. So that's the process we've been going through. And yeah, I think what's there provides a good summary of where we've sort of landed. So there is a way of doing it, but it didn't seem to be financially sustainable, and that's sort of what we'll be reporting to the joint committee. And it is a joint Nelson Tasman investigation. So we've partly funded it, and Nelson have partly funded it. So I think the joint committee is really the place for the more detailed information to come.
Yeah, so there is a report going to joint committee. It should be coming out. I don't know when the agenda's coming out, but it's coming out pretty soon. Fundamentally, it says, so the company that was engaged folded. It was funded through tranche, some money from central government. And if you recall, the last joint committee was raised by one of the Nelson councillors about closing the loop. So Briley has done a report. And although the idea is fundamentally sound, it just wouldn't fly in the current environment. But that should come out whenever the items comes out on the agenda. They're on LG Hub now, apparently. So that should give you a further detail. If you've got any queries, maybe just give me a tinkle. We can talk.
Any other questions of Alan? I've got Councillor Butler and then Councillor McKenzie.
Okay, thank you. Just in regards to the long-term plan and the the activity management plans, these were distributed to us and for us to give feedback. And was there much feedback that came from council, and was it incorporated into the activity management plans? Or was that done on a discretionary basis?
Okay, thank you. So yes, just a reminder, yeah, we circulated all the plans and for review, but on a sort of exceptions basis. So we can take them and read it unless people raise things. And councillors are asked to sort of go back directly to the authors of the activity management plans. So I haven't seen all of those feedback that have gone directly to the author. So I actually can't give you an overview of how much feedback we got. I suspect probably not much. And on a case by case basis, I think there would have been a conversation with the councillor who raised it, and then a resolution of either making a change or not making a change. But I don't really have an overview that I can provide for that.
So if we have a query about that, if we put in some suggestions and received a deafening silence, we need to take that up with the staff involved.
You do, yeah, and as quickly as possible. And if you're going to do that, again, I'd be happy then for you to copy me in, and I will agitate from this end to get you a response. So yeah, it sounds like you may have something that hasn't been responded to. So we'll follow that up.
You.
Yep.
Thanks.
Right. Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you very much through the chair. 2 questions. Are we doing the whole of the report now, aren't we?
We'll do the first half, so we go up to page, I'll need to put my glasses on, page 66, and then the environmental policy update. Diana's doing.
Sorry, no, we were just going, this was just the community policy, so this was to the
and
yeah, David will do the infrastructure planning policy. So yeah.
My apologies.
So are we doing page 65 now? Okay.
No one's got any other questions of Alan? We can go to 65. No one has, so over to you, Councillor McKenzie.
Okay, well, my first question is about page 65. It's the update on the review of river consent, environmental management plan and best practice guide. So, I mean, I think it's probably no surprise that, we get a lot of feedback from our community about our work in rivers, and Deputy Mayor Bryant and I have spent some time looking at various issues and talking with council staff about it. So my question really is the description of this work actually what we're currently doing? So for example, we talk about we're updating the environmental management plan to incorporate the national policy statement on freshwater into Mana o Te Wai more explicitly, when in actual fact, don't we know that the national policy statement on freshwater is going to be amended and changed? So can you just assure me that this is actually correctly reflects the work that we're doing?
Sure, thank you. Through you, Chair. Whether or not Te Mana o Te Wai as a concept with those words remains, the fundamental freshwater protections and desire to see these kind of freshwater protections will remain in some fashion. So you're correct in that probably the Te Mana o Te Wai will move out of that, but overall the philosophy and the concept of what we're trying to do with the EMP will remain.
Okay, and we talk about, I mean, the box is a review of the river consent. In actual fact, the explanation of the work that we're doing doesn't mention whether we're reviewing the consent or not.
I can clarify that as well. So the box is the review of the river consent. It should probably have a little apostrophe. River consents EMP. So we are obligated under the consent to review the EMP every 2 years, and that's the process we're doing. And it needs a little bit more than just a review this time around.
Okay. And then maybe I do just have a quick question. I might be on the wrong page on 69, just with respect to the E-plan. So I always had in my mind that the E-plan was kind of like and I obviously got it completely wrong, but it was an end thing once we had reviewed the TRMP. But this but clearly I've got that completely wrong because we're in a procurement phase. So can you just give me a bit more information around what it is that we're doing there?
So through the chair, we are going to put the TRMP into e-plan format.
Right. Wow. A searchable format.
And I have to say, we're way behind other councils on this. So I think we've recognised that it's really labour intensive. So this was very much pushed through that we needed to do this pretty urgently. We have got a preferred vendor and we're moving quickly. We've got funding for it as well. So we're ready to move forward on it. So yeah, it's not going to be straightforward, but it's something we need to do pretty quickly.
Okay, so would this be a situation, I mean, having tried to look at what you can and can't do is incredibly, I mean, you know, for an average person, it's incredibly complicated. So is this going to take us into a space where if I was a landowner, I would be able to type in, you know, these keywords and suddenly all the clauses of the TRMP would pop out at me so that I could work out as a landowner what I could do or not do?
There's two ways, my understanding, you can use the e-plan. You can have the whole document, so it's electronic, so you can, you know, do a bit of a search and things like that. But also you can search by property and then actually see, okay, what's relevant to you on your property. I think what's really great about this is because currently the TRMP, it's PDFs on the website. It's very clunky, and also in terms of the planning maps, they're also PDFs. So the great thing about this tool is getting the planning maps up there. It's more of a web map. It's very interactive. You can turn things off and on. We're looking in terms of what Nelson has for their e-plan, and certainly once we go live with this, I think there'll be an opportunity to do a bit of community engagement around how you can use the plan in this format, because it will be quite a change.
That's three, so we'll let the others have a go and then they can come back to you if you've still got another question. No, you've had three in a row. These others are waiting. Councillor Kilmore first. I've indulged it. And then Maru.
Sorry, we're arguing through the chair. We're arguing over here. Motueka wastewater treatment plant. Page 66. You're establishing a working group. Can you just give me a heads up of who was on that working group and just what's happening with that?
It's already been established for a number of years, and it's the Motueka councillors and myself, as I understand it. We haven't met for a while.
That's right. Through you, Chair, the Motueka treatment plant working group was established many years ago, but was paused to allow the regional wastewater philosophy work stream to commence, which all of this is coming soon to a workshop near you at the end of the month. So best probably to leave it there, but it is a significant piece of work that's going on in our group now. But you're right, it's the resurrection of a dormant group, not the creation of a new group. That's right. Yeah.
Councillor Maru, were you?
I feel like I'm rising, but no. It is about that, and you may have just answered that question, David, in terms of there's some more work coming, because the original purpose and then what we're going to do are slightly different words. So I'm interested in terms of not looking at the Motueka wastewater plant in isolation. So some comments have been, why don't we pipe that water to a centrally located one? I take it we've got 11 years left, Bells Island's got 20 years left, so I'd hate to think we just do Motueka in isolation. So is that the work that's sort of coming?
That is what the discussion in a few weeks is all about. We have a cunning plan.
And I believe I'm allowed two questions. So my second question is that it's the only place I can find it, and it relates to, we'll fit it on page 69. So I'm not sure if it's come yet, but the Motueka Community Board has proposed a minor change to the TRMP in terms of how long a temporary tiny home or structure becomes a dwelling, in terms of 8 weeks. When do we get to have a discussion about that? What's that process? And I guess I'm just linking it to the whole of plan review, which is on hold. So is there some minor changes to the TRMP and timeframes for that?
I'll have to get back to you on that. Sorry.
I don't want to raise expectations here. That we've received the resolution recommendation through the minutes. I think it's been explained on a number of occasions that this is not a straightforward process, and in fact, it's quite difficult. So I know it's on Barry's list of things to do and respond to. But it has to come back into council for discussion. But I want to set expectations, and that is not a thing that can happen overnight, if at all, under the current legislation.
Thank you, Mr. I don't like the answer at all. I get expectations, but I guess I have a high expectation that we'd at least discuss it. So how that sits on the table, I'm not sure.
So if I can just respond to that, councillor, we will absolutely respond to the resolution coming out of the board. Sorry, councillor.
Councillor Walker, and then we'll go back to Councillor Mackenzie.
For fear of losing my rag, that response has kind of thrown me a little. I grapple with the fact we have a CAT bylaw coming up. When we get a response like that, and please don't take it that personally, because I know that's coming from your sector, the implications that we have in our community currently around the current TRMP and the effects that's having widely across not just Motueka Ward, but further afield, I grapple with how many times the community board have raised this and the process that they've been through to get it to where it is. And then this big kind of caution, question mark, it's not going to happen overnight. Yet this council is prepared to spend copious amounts of money on a CAT bylaw. I'm lost for words, and I'm going to stop now before I regret what I say.
I absolutely don't take things personally sat here. I think we're dealing with different legislation. This is an issue that's driven by a number of bits and pieces of legislation. What we're really keen to do is have a proper conversation in here and explain the challenges of changing this. That'll be coming up. We'll come back to you. I can't recall when we're doing this, Diana, but it'll be part of. Yeah, we need to come back to you with some timelines on that, but it won't be specifically on that issue. There's some wider TRMP conversations we need to have. Yep. So it's going to be part of a package. So please don't think I'm offended by your passion on the issue.
You'll be able to email the timeline that you've got to them, so just so they have some idea.
Well, there's an action I think to respond anyway to the minutes of the board. So we will respond to that in some shape or form, whether it'll be this time or next time. We just need to get our wording right.
All right, Councillor Mackenzie, I hope you haven't lost your train of thought.
No. Well, I'm still on the E-plan, so I'm just coming back to the E-plan because I guess maybe there's two main categories of users with respect to the plan. We've got obviously staff processing stuff, and then we've got our community at large, landowners. So the project's going to be completed by July. From a user perspective, say the landowners, how have you ensured that what you're going to deliver actually meets the needs of the users?
Through the chair, I mean, we're largely limited in terms of the product, the software that is available. We are using a company who had this rolled out in a number of other councils, and they're constantly, I suppose, improving the user experience as issues and needs arise. Yeah.
Dale, have you got a question? You're looking at me like you have.
Yeah, I sort of was a wee bit blown away when I read the wording on the river management plans. Development of the council's first river management plan. It's required under the Rivers Activity Management Plan. I suppose that's the new bit, because 15 years that I've sat around this table, and every time I've gone in and talked to a staff member, it was always talking about the plan they had for the river. So hopefully this isn't the first plan we've ever had. Anyway, council's X and Y rated rivers are the ones that are protected by stock banks. I would assume that we've got things in place to clean these out. If we get the heavy rain events that they're yakking about on the radio this morning, whether something or other is going to change to something else and we're going to expect more water. Hopefully people clean the spoutings out on their houses, and I would expect the council to keep the spouting in their rivers clear as well. There's opportunities for contractors to go in and clean those rivers out without even going anywhere near the water. Some of those beaches that are built up with all the greenery on it, quite concerning, because it is obstructing the water and putting the water to where it shouldn't be going. So just a comment. As I say, I've been here for 16 years, and if this is the first ever river plan, I'm a bit shocked.
Through you, Chair, we could probably have a whole workshop on this, Councillor Dowler, but it has been a long-standing issue in our sort of struggling to try to get a river management plan established that really outlines when we would intervene and do river works. That's the big struggle, is when do we do river work? In our River X areas, which we don't have too many, we would actually be clearing things out with some regularity because those are our flood protected rivers. In our River Y areas, we do not manage for flood. So we wouldn't necessarily be going and cleaning out debris from the river strictly for a flood conveyance, unless it was posing a risk to a specific property and that risk was deemed serious enough to require intervention. And as for beaches with gravel beaches throughout the river with greenery on them, we do regularly survey those, and these rivers are managed to achieve a sort of mean bed level of gravel. And so unless the gravel has accumulated to a certain amount, our consent doesn't allow us to extract that gravel. So we've managed those quite closely in the terms of the consent, not specifically for flood conveyance in many areas.
No, it's my understanding it's moved to there's a new responsibility because it's changed. The river's engineer now reports to Mr. Smith.
That's correct.
And because I've taken him some photos recently.
We're still trying to hire a replacement team leader for David Stevenson. But the river management planning still ostensibly lies within the infrastructure planning group. Just a matter of resources.
Yeah, and my understanding is we've taken a lot more gravel out of certain rivers in this last year, but still not as much as some people would like. So we have made considerable progress. Councillor Maurer, and then I just want to go to Councillor Hill because she's struggling with connectivity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One, I'm happy to move the report. So happy to move the report. And secondly, I just want to come back to the TRMP. So we are currently displacing people from properties in tiny homes because of some discrete legislation of bylaw, and we are actively saying we don't go looking for this. And in our town, there is a lot of people that could be displaced if somebody like the current person that has come to me, not a neighbour, not somebody that lives closely, but somebody that doesn't like them, has made a complaint and we have to act. So to leave this and to have it sitting there just absolutely frustrates me because we know this occurs everywhere, but we don't look for it. We don't do anything unless there's a complaint, which tells me there's a part belief from staff that in some cases don't even go looking for it because this is silly. So it sounds like a silly rule. It's having consequences that are displacing people. And I'm just frustrated that I look forward to the paper and I really hope that it comes sooner rather than later.
So if I can go through the chair, I've just been chatting to Barry. If we can, I think it's going to be quite straightforward to get it on the next S&P. I think either a workshop or a paper, probably a workshop might be better, that we can actually give you the ins and outs of this. I mean, ultimately, people can apply for a resource or building consent.
Thank you.
So it's a priority. Councillor Hill, do you have anything to add? Because I know you've had connectivity issues.
Thanks, Chair. No, I don't have connectivity issues, but I was trying to, if we can have chat enabled on our meetings when we're on Zoom, it's very, very helpful. So I was trying to work out if there was a something up on the screen there in chamber. And if there was, I was going to ask for a screen share, but I've got no way of communicating there other than interrupting people and just coming in over. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure why we don't enable chat, but it's a pretty important tool when we're here on Zoom. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll get you to talk to the staff about that offline, because Kelsey's shaking her head, so it causes her a problem. So anyway, I'll get those that Zoom in regularly to talk to our democracy staff. So that's probably you and Councillor Butler and maybe Councillor Greening. Okay, right, so that, David, have you got something to add?
Sorry, I just wanted to flag a couple of other significant items in the infrastructure section of the plan, just in case before we move it. To note that the speed management plan consultation has recently closed, as well the Mapua master plan consultation period for the second phase is closing this weekend, just so that you're all aware, and we've received pretty robust response to both.
I understand you've had a large number of submissions.
For both, the speed management plan clocked in at just over 2,200 separate pieces of information. So our team member Jane is diligently going through all of those at the moment, the good and the bad and the ugly. And I know many of you have been out to the Mapua master plan consultation sessions as well and seen the really good response we've had there. So more information and workshops and discussions on both of those will be coming as well. But if there's any immediate questions, we can take those as well.
My understanding is last week they had 200 people through the Mapua one. I was there early, managed to disgrace myself for spilling something and had to go home and change my shirt. There was lots of people. So that was great. Any questions of Diana in relation to Barry's report? Because I thought it was straightforward, and we've had a bit of a workshop on some of the stuff. It's a moving thing, and I think my understanding is Barry will be bringing a report to the next meeting in relation to like our TRMP and other things. Yeah. So because the government it's a quickly moving space from central government, which makes quite a bit of work for our staff, and they have to be quite agile. So he hopes to have something to the next meeting in 6 weeks.
So can I just clarify, Chair? So the discussion was specific to a clause in the TRMP, which we're going to workshop.
Yes.
There is a broader conversation which we need to have around how, the RMA reforms are now somewhere.
Yeah.
Something's going on, and there will be some changes coming. So we're going to have to do some fixes, which is, there's a larger separate conversation we need direction on, which will come to you, but that probably won't be the next meeting.
Right. So yeah, it's a moving space. It's interesting watching the briefings that are coming out from government, but statements from ministers aren't the same as legislation. So it's legislation, like we had the GPS on transport, was some good news for us going forward, for those that sit in the traffic and stationary, trying to get past Richmond. So it is, the Hope Bypass is on the GPS for the first time ever. And I've already had phone calls about people about the designation. So because they're concerned it's going to go through their property. But I said, it's only a designation. Wait till you see a plan. So I've had this report moved by Councillor Maru. Councillor Mackenzie, would you be happy to second? No. She asked the most questions.
Yes, fine.
All right, seconded Councillor Mackenzie. We'll put the report. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Councillor Hill, are you happy to close with Karakia? Let's see.
Yes, I am. Are you ready for that now?
We are, and then we're going to have a break, and we've got a workshop due in 30 minutes. So if we could close the meeting with Karakia now, thank you.
Kia hiki te korero, kia wātia, kia mama tō manawa o te tangata, kia u ki te ara mō tātou e ora nei. Ko rongo ki ringa, kia tina hui e tae ki.
Thank you, everyone. I thought we'd be finished about this time. We've got a workshop in relation to Motueka Harbour at 11:30. So